We've seen in previous modules that people with neuromuscular conditions take part in all aspects of life. This includes becoming parents. In this module, we'll be looking at how your role as a PA is affected when your employer has children. Sarah Fay is an occupational therapist and the founder of a charity which supports parents who have disabilities.
A lot of the people I've met with neuromuscular conditions are already experts in their own conditions. They're used to dealing with very complex things. They have to deal with a lot of environmental adaptations and things like that. So they're already in that reasoning zone of saying, yes, I do want to be a mum or a dad, and I am going to engage in this process.
Bea Anderson is a mum who has a neuromuscular condition. She lives in Greater Manchester with her partner and their 2 children, who are 9 and 6.
It's really important that disabled parents are supported in a very compassionate way, and that personal assistants envision as much as they possibly can what it might be like for us on the flip side of the coin, in order to back off in an emotional sense and just offer the practical support.
As a PA, you're an enabler. Now, to enable something means that you make it possible. And I think when I was thinking about this, I thought to myself, well, actually, yes, that's the first thing that a PA is there to do, is to make something that a disabled parent would struggle with possible.
Oliver Poole has spinal muscular atrophy. He and his wife have 2 children, and he's supported by PAs.
As a husband and a dad, they are my arms and legs and just really help me in every aspect. And when it works well, you feel you can ask the PA anything because they make you feel comfortable.
Facilitator, facile in French is easy. It means easy. So when you facilitate something, you make it easier for the disabled parent.
My experience as a disabled parent has been quite 50-50, if I'm honest. I have faced a lot of stigma, but at the same time, I have had people who have treated me like I'm no different to any other parent, which is wonderful.
In some families, one of the parents may be non-disabled, but the parent with a neuromuscular condition must still be supported to take their active share in parenting. There are also single parents living with neuromuscular conditions, and there are families where both parents have a condition that means that they're categorised as disabled, such as Faye, Stevie, and Rowan Pearson.
I'm Faye. I've got spinal muscular atrophy. I'm 31 and I'm a wife and a mother. My son now, he's 4 years old, and my husband also has a neuromuscular condition, Duchenne muscular dystrophy. We're living a happy, independent life in our own bungalow and literally traveling the world when we can.
What I would say to a new personal assistant when it comes to supporting a disabled parent with a neuromuscular condition is to come into this with an open mind and an open heart. You're going to learn things that you might never have thought about. You need to be open-minded in this sort of job, because there may be situations that you have just never thought about, never mind experienced, but are perfectly okay. This is our family, every family is different. And look at it as a very rewarding experience.
Thankfully, we've got PAs that are so understanding and actually on board with us being parents, not disabled parents, just parents. Because when you come through our door, we are no different to you.
It's also realizing as well, you can figure out all these little things you can tweak to do it independently, but there might still be some things that you just can't do, which you would need a personal assistant or family to step in and either support you in doing it or do it for you while you are still involved, because at the end of the day, it's working with that person to ensure that you're still the center of baby's world. And that's a fear with a lot of disabled parents who need support, is the level of support needs, baby might get confused.
You're an ally. Now, in the First World War, Russia, England, and France signed something called the Triple Entente. Now, again, the French word entente means understanding. So if you're an ally, you combine and unite within a background or landscape of understanding. So that's quite a biggie, really. But, an ally is, if that's what all the things that a PA can do for a family that they're supporting, then they're definitely on a winning streak, I reckon.
As they grew into toddlers, they learned how to climb up on my lap. They knew, and they've always known that Mummy can't lift them. And their way of getting a hug and getting that sort of physical interaction from me, they have to climb up on me to do it, or otherwise ask somebody who is non-disabled to pick them up and put them closer.
For the children of disabled parents, this way of living is their norm.
So my girls have obviously never known any different. Mummy has Poole muscles. Mummy's a wheelchair user. I have an electric wheelchair, and they've always been around that. I've had a personal assistant be quite anxious about the fact that when they were at the age of pulling up on furniture, that they would use my wheelchair to pull up as well, which created a bit of awkwardness, really, because I loved that fact, because it meant that I was more involved in that stage of them discovering their feet, and how to cruise. And them using my wheelchair meant I could be closer and more interactive with them.
We've never sugarcoated anything for him. We've literally just been honest with him. And I think that's why nothing's an issue for him. Like, he literally just sees it as this is his stuff in his house. Like, it's just there for support. It's like a toaster to him. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's no different to a toaster or a kettle or whatever. Like, he sees it no different, which is amazing. And equally, he doesn't touch it because he knows the importance of it.
Safety equipment for children can often present a barrier to disabled adults.
You get this kind of conflict between access, safety.
We had to make do with general baby safety equipment and just accept that lesser independence when moving around the home, because baby safety was paramount and way more important. And as a parent, everybody makes sacrifices, and parents with neuromuscular conditions, in a sense, have to sacrifice their independence temporarily while their baby's discovering the world, to keep them safe. And that's just what you do as a parent.
While the environment has to be less accessible for reasons of child safety, you as a PA can help your employer to overcome that.
You build bridges, quite literally. This tension between security access to a building, and then you come in as a disabled person and you've got these protected characteristics under the Equality Act, and everybody runs for the hills. So if you've got a PA who can literally open the door for you, hold it open, and you can walk in, you've given them a bridge into an environment and save them a load of hassle trying to negotiate reasonable adjustments to get in and out of a nursery. That's and I think sometimes PAs can feel like, oh, this is a bit monotonous. We do the same thing over and over again. I'm sure I'm not really making much of a difference. Well, when I did this, I thought, well, you definitely are.
Your primary role as a PA is to meet the care needs of the person with the neuromuscular condition. When that person is a parent, their needs will include being able to meet the needs of their child.
A lot of the time we have to stop and start because the kids need things. So it's a lot of multitasking.
Living with a neuromuscular condition can often mean that personal care takes more time, and some conditions cause fatigue and having stronger and weaker days. You need to fit that in around your employer's tasks as a parent.
A PA can really bring a lot of breathing space and enable the parent to recharge their batteries.
I had to balance a routine where baby slept and my own needs could be met while baby was asleep.
If it's a bit chaotic, just keep going, keep the routines together, and your parents will thank you for it, because it does release them to either recharge their batteries or focus on something else.
My PA comes with us on the school run, just to help with curbs and stuff, and especially if it's raining, because I can't hold an umbrella up. And then we turn back around, and if I haven't finished my care needs by the time we return from the school run, we just carry on.
Care needs may increase or change during pregnancy. It's also likely that as a PA, you will need to be sensitive to the dynamics of the new situation.
I think during pregnancy, it was actually a really worrying time anyways. Just obviously because having a neuromuscular condition and being pregnant, and just obviously it's a whole new strain on your body, it was really important to us that the PA understood how serious and how quickly I could deteriorate with my SMA or the baby.
When you find out you're expecting a baby and you have a complex condition, the responses are not always what you would hope for. So I think the first thing you need is encouragement. The next thing is empathy, and I think support all the way through the process.
The most rapid change in care needs, routine, and family dynamic, of course, will be when the baby first arrives.
For like the first few days of Ron being born, it just made sense to have a family member there. But on the same hand, the carers, the PAs were constantly there. And they were like, do we need to do anything? Like, they were happy to step back, but they were also happy to step in.
When both my girls were premature, I felt quite safe holding them because they weighed very little. And as they grew older, I became a bit more nervous about if I was left in a room holding them, especially when they get to that age where they're really squirmy.
These milestones, to start with, are very motor orientated, and the newborn phase, it's extremely task orientated for the parent, because it's like a reciprocal kind of cycle of, dressing, changing, feeding, sleeping, and that goes on for about 12 weeks, non-stop. So and in that role, the PA can be setting things up, making the bottles, sorting out the toys, washing the clothes.
As a baby grows, so babies could become heavier, don't they? So it became more of a challenge to work out where I needed full support from a personal assistant or family, or where I could figure out how to do things for myself in a different way.
It's important for the PA, if you're working with a disabled parent, to have a knowledge of child development, as much as what equipment they might use to give the child a bath, etc., etc.
Parents will be able to work out new ways of achieving what they need to as the child gradually grows and develops.
It is a process, and you'll see the signs. You'll see the signs in their movements and attempting to reach for toys on the other side of the cot, and you can practice.
From a safety aspect, it was around 12-18 months as they become like crawling and walking, pulling up on the furniture, where I needed more PA support, just so I felt safe with baby. I could continue doing what I could, but at the same time, baby's not getting into anything dangerous that I might be too slow to stop from happening.
In terms of moving on from sort of 2 years old to 4 years old, this is what I call the rites of passage phase, because things are getting a bit more complicated in the tasks. You sort of have got, the potty training, which the PA could definitely help with, playing sort of games a bit more. And then as they get older, things like catching a ball, riding a bike, learning to swim, going on the swings in the park, zip wire, and climbing trees.
As a PA, you can facilitate interaction between parent and child without taking over.
You have a one-on-one play with Rowan, and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, mummy can't do that. They're always in earshot, and they're like, they kind of like pop in, they do what I've kind of already verbally said, and then mine and Ron's play is not interrupted by my disability, but they're not involved either.
As a child becomes older and more independent, it might be assumed that they will help with their parents' care needs, but that is not their role.
Throughout my pregnancy, one thing that always bothered me and that I was mindful I would not let happen was that my children become young carers. Unfortunately, as my children grew up, my care budget decreased because social workers and other people involved in my care assumed that they could help me. And I don't think that's right. I did not have children for them to grow up to look after me. So it was always been very important to me that both my girls do not have involvement in my care needs.
He is very independent, don't get me wrong. But as well, we don't want him to be in that position where he does become the carer, because that, for us, before we even got pregnant, that was like a big no-no for us.
Some parents say, I want my child to be supported specifically because of the dynamics of our family life, because I'm disabled and, I don't want them to miss out. And young carers across the country, there are a number of charities and networks that support young carers in different areas. I don't think there's anything wrong in saying that your child is a young carer. You haven't failed. And I think, sometimes when a social worker says, oh, well, they're going to be a young carer, you sort of think, well, is that another thing I've got to prove that they're not? But yeah, I think it's a personal choice. And my own experience is that if they've grown up with it, they're going to be aware of it and they're not going to be frightened by it.
Parents will be seeking to create an environment for their children which is safe and secure, and in which they can develop naturally.
I think also for a disabled parent, often you've not started from the same place as other parents. 9 times out of 10, you might find that you come across the services while you're pregnant. They'll say that, you've got to safeguard your unborn child. I think you've got to kind of be sensitive in that discussion, because the parent will have almost certainly had that kind of a journey, if their needs are as complex as they can be when you have a neuromuscular condition. Now, I'm not saying that those people can't articulate those concerns and won't work with the relevant agencies.
Safeguarding is important for the children, for you as an employee, and for your employer as a vulnerable adult. Parents not only have to make sure that they're safe with you themselves, but also that their child is safe with you, which might involve a greater degree of diligence when hiring. Safeguarding, at its most basic level, simply means ensuring that everyone is protected from avoidable harm.
The first thing to say is that safeguarding children and vulnerable adults is everybody's business. That's the first thing to say.
The ultimate responsibility for baby is myself, and it is any parent a PA supports. The baby is that of the individuals. Becoming a personal assistant to somebody with a neuromuscular condition does not mean you become responsible for that child. You are responsible for enabling the parent to be what they want to be as a parent in a physical sense.
As a PA, you're there to support the parent in taking responsibility for their children. Yours is not a direct childcare role.
Most importantly, you're not here to be a nanny.
However, you'll be around the children and interact with the whole family, so it's important to establish ground rules with the person you work with about what you should and shouldn't be doing. As an adult in the situation, you will have basic responsibilities around keeping the children from harm when you see something dangerous happening.
There's a very fine balance to strike when it comes to support from a personal assistant, because a lot of people struggle to know where that line is to cross emotionally, how involved to get. And that's a conversation you must have with your individual PAs. You need to tell them what exactly you need help with and what exactly you do not need help with.
I think there's can be a lot of fear around for PAs. Oh my goodness, am I allowed to do this? What happens if something goes wrong and it's on my watch and that kind of thing?
It's about the children really not being left alone with PAs, but PAs not feeling that they're not solely responsible for the children. I.e., like I wouldn't nip out and leave the PA alone with the kids.
You've got to remember that you're in a contract of employment for this. So that in a sense gives the parent the responsibility to ensure that these things that they want you to do and the things that they want you to support them in are clearly defined.
Let's be honest, your child is at some point going to be left in a room with the PA, because you don't sit and watch your child every day. Not whether you're disabled or not disabled, you haven't got eyes on your kid at all times.
Some of my experiences have been, and I know other people have experienced the same thing, where personal assistants have overstepped the mark in pushing their own views on how to raise baby.
Let's just take away the disabilities for a little bit, right? I think anybody becoming a parent, you are always, and we always have to remember this, you are always going to get another parent or a family member or a friend try to give you advice and overstep the mark, right? So that's, but not bringing it to the care of the disability, like you are going to have it anyway. And it's your decision whether you take that advice or criticism.
It's important for a personal assistant to know that they're there in a practical sense, but having a neuromuscular condition does not affect the way it doesn't affect our mind.
It's also important for children to be clear on the roles of adults in their home.
We had to have the chat with Ron a few weeks ago, and we were just like, the guys that are here, if you had to help mommy and daddy look after you, but through us being the boss.
Conversely, make sure that you understand clearly about when it is and isn't appropriate for you to make decisions in a situation that the parent is responsible for.
He's never actually the one directing the PA, because again, something that we were really adamant on, it was like the PA is not there for Rowan, even though they are hands-on with Rowan. Every instruction and all of his care must come from us.
I've had PAs in the past when it comes to morning routines where they feel like they have to interfere because my children are not listening to me. But it's a learning curve with every parent. If somebody interferes, then they're never going to listen to me.
I think my only advice for anybody, do you know what I mean? Is just make sure you're always communicating. And obviously, if someone has upset you, then you have to tell them.
PAs sometimes feel scared. I don't understand this disability. I don't really know. And I've been asked to do X, Y, and Z. And would I do this with my own children? How would I feel if it was my own children? And things like that. So I think that's another key thing in the sort of relationship that you create with your PAs. And also PAs shouldn't be scared to say, actually, I need to sit down and have a chat about this.
They just gel into the family a little bit. And I think just understanding the boundaries and the line, a very fine line.
Finding the right fit and getting to know and understand one another takes time.
So obviously, the guys, the people who work for us or work with us, they've known Ron for a long time, and they've literally watched him grow like we have. So there's that, there's the love there as well from them.
It's like we say in occupational therapy, you can't do an assessment in one go. It's a process, because you've got to understand how the client is influenced by different things that you might be interested in. And it's the same with this. I mean, these are our children, and we all have a duty to protect our children and to make the right decisions and follow the right kind of guidance. And I think, there has to be, within the recruitment, we have to demonstrate that there'll be an honest, open channel for discussions around what people may or may not be fearful about.
You just have to make sure that your PAs are in tune with you as a parent.
So it's really about getting people who are in this for the right reasons, who are quite family orientated. I think as my girls grow into teenagers, this might become a bit more difficult. They might see the family dynamic as different, and I'm prepared for that sort of conversation to happen. And it'll just mainly be about reassuring them that every family dynamic is different, and this is our dynamic, is that we have PAs involved, and reminding them how we would struggle if we did not have their involvement.
Even if you are giving us the best standard of care ever, but you are not getting on with our son, then we're really sorry, but we can't have you in our home because he's our priority. Do you know what I mean? Over anything. And that's really sad, but as a parent, he's literally our everything.
At the end of the day, you're coming into a family unit to support a parent and enabling them to be the best that they can be. And you will be a key factor in their lives. You will have a degree of responsibility that will mean that in years to come, when the children grow up, they will look back and remember you.
When you employ that person, you have to they do have to have that little bit of love for you as a person, and you do have to build that friendship, but it's making sure that that friendship can remain professional when it needs to be. Even
though between myself and my own PAs, we know it's a professional thing, to the children, we want it as easygoing and relaxed as possible, because at the end of the day, this is their childhood.
So you might stay for a little while, or you might stay for a long time. But I didn't have PAs, but I had au pairs as a child, and there was one particular au pair that's name is still in my heart, because she had such an impact on my sister and I. And I think that is something that you should carry with you. That you are, while it's not always easy, and yes, we work in a context of safeguarding and risk assessments and all these things. Ultimately, that's the potential you have as a PA.
In this module, we've looked at how people with neuromuscular conditions approach parenting and the obstacles they may face, what your role as a PA to a disabled parent is, and what strategies parents with neuromuscular conditions use to take the active role of a parent caring for their children. We've heard how children of disabled parents interact with adults in the home, the extra barriers that disabled parents face, and how you can work with your employer to find practical ways of overcoming new barriers as the child grows and develops. We've learned about safeguarding, the risks of parents' care needs impacting the child and how to overcome those risks, and the importance as a PA of maintaining professionalism while also building strong bonds with the whole family.